Any rifle without good data is only capable of making precision hits out to about 200 yards, give or take. So today we're going to talk you through how to build good data for your rifle so that anyone can pick it up and make first round impacts at distance. Now this matters because if you're the only person who can actually run a tool like this at its highest potential, then it's only an asset to you, your family, or your team when you're the one pulling the trigger.
See, what if you have to pick up James Reese's rifle from the terminal list and make the same shot on a moving car as it's coming over the hill? Or what if you find Private Jackson Springfield that got blown out of the bell tower in Saving Private Ryan and you had to pick it up and counter snipe through a European urban waste? Or what if you're a former hitman who's been retired for 20 years and someone kills your dog and you have to dig up all your old rifles to get revenge? See, if we can set our rifles up to thrive, even in the hands of total strangers or friends or family, or maybe ourselves just in the future after it's been decades since we shot a gun last, it becomes more than just a tool. It becomes a force multiplier.
And with all that in mind, I have these cards that can go onto my forearm but are saved on my rifle when they go away in the safe for my precision guns. They have all the information that I need to at least get in the ballpark of making precision hits. Now, today we're gonna go over how I collect this data, what you would need if you're gonna create one of these yourself, and then at the end of it all, we're gonna put it to a test. So today we're gonna be covering zero distance, ammo selection, primary and secondary, holds at distance, whether your gun is suppressed or not, max point blank range, and dealing with movers. Let's get into it.
Now, face value, we don't really think about zero distance very often. I mean, zero is kind of just like an admin task that we absolutely hate doing, just has to be done before we can get to training, right? Well, the problem is there's a lot of different types of rifles that all require a little bit different kind of zero.
Yeah, I mean, even if we just look at hunting rifles, a lot of them are still zeroed at 300 yards, or an AK. Those original iron sights were designed to be zeroed when aiming at the belt line of an enemy. Then if we get into the AR platform, there are LPVOs that call for being zeroed at 100 or 200 yards, and you'd need to know which one you're actually working with. Then we get into red dots for ARs. As we start to elevate them and put risers under these red dots, people are opting to zero at 50, 36, 100, 200 yards. And if you don't actually know where your zero is, it could really throw you off. Not even to mention, talking about 300 blackout. Someone may have zeroed with subs and they never actually shot supers. Or maybe they designed that 300 blackout to be shooting at 100 yards with supers and they never ever cared about subs. So with this in mind, one of the first and most important things I put on the card is where my gun is actually zeroed at. Most of my rifles that are designed to be shooting out at distance are zeroed right at 100 yards.
Think back to the last time you heard about a data breach. For me, it was the National Public Data Breach, the one that exposed over 2.9 billion records. I remember scrolling through the news and seeing the words social security numbers, addresses, and phone numbers listed as compromised. What went through your mind as you processed that news? What steps did you take to respond? Well, don't panic. There are steps that you can take to prevent things like this from happening to you. Change your passwords, sign up for credit monitoring, and use VPNs. And that's why we're excited to talk about Aura, the sponsor of today's video. See, Aura goes beyond basic monitoring. They actively scan billions of data points, including the dark web and court records, to alert you if your social security number, address, or other sensitive information is at risk. And here's what really sold me. Every adult on your account gets $1 million in identity theft insurance. That's up to $5 million a family. Think about it. With Aura, it's not just about knowing your data is safe. It's about knowing you're prepared if the worst happens. And with features like their password manager, antivirus, and military-grade VPN, Aura keeps you covered on all fronts. So if you're ready to take your security seriously, use our link below or go to aura.com/dirty civilian for a 2-week free trial. Or scan the QR code on your screen. Protect what matters most, your identity. Because once it's compromised, there's no going back. And Aura's got your back. So why not start today?
And before we get back to shooting, because we are on the range, there are a couple of companies that basically fuel our range days and all of our training. Steel Industries being one of them. We just picked up this mall. We straight up bought it from them just like any other customer. They have unparalleled, unrivaled customer service in my personal opinion whenever it comes to night vision. So definitely check them out for all of your night vision needs. They also have incredible pricing, incredible deals, and just a great crew of dudes that you can talk to anytime you log onto their website.
Guys, if you are shooting with precision and accuracy in mind, a high-end optic is great, but it's only as good as the mount that it's sitting in. It literally is attached to your rifle, and if it is not perfect, you're not going to get perfect results. Well, Zero Gravity has been a company I've been watching for the past couple of years, and they make phenomenal products. I've been playing with a few of their mounts over a little while, and I have a new optic on order that I'm excited to play with. This one's actually Nick's, but in true to its name, Zero Gravity, those mounts are very lightweight as well as being incredibly robust. So go check them out. Link is in the description. Zero Gravity.
Well, what about ammo? See, growing up, I always thought that I could just go to the local Uncle Jeremiah's antique gun shop and buy whatever was on the shelf and just smoke deer at like 700 meters, no big deal. Would you say that's the case?
Ammo selection it depends on what you're trying to do with it. If you just want the gun to go bang because you're training, probably not a huge deal. If your goal is precision and consistency, then the consistency in the ammo is gonna have a lot to do with what you see downrange. So I have two different loads. I have 77 grain and 55. Let me just get on my zero board at 100 yards and show you what I'm seeing. First 5 rounds, 77 grain. 55 grain in the metal mag. So shooting 2 different grains, I can actually see that I have a nice little 1-inch group. With 77, looks like I need to come right just a hair. I was shooting with wind and dialed for Nick because he doesn't know how to hold. But when I get over to 55, it is a significantly bigger spread and it's quite a bit further left. I'm getting some rounds high and low. Now it is possible for us to find a good ammo in 55 and 77 that the gun likes, but it's typically not going to be landing in the exact same spot on zero. And you're not gonna have the same effects downrange either. So at least be noting your zero distance. And next, what ammo did you actually zero this gun with? But let me add to that by saying 77 shoots really well, but 55 is incredibly common out here in the US. So, son of a gun, all right, show you. So while I do have a card for 77, I also have a card for 55, and I've noted on both the adjustments that would need to be made in order to find zero. So if I have my 77 card, here's what you would need to do in order to hit zero for 55 at least, and vice versa as well. All right, next, your holds. Probably what everyone assumes when we say get your gun data. All the information that you need in order to make impacts out at distance as far as elevation goes. Well, let me start by saying if I were to collect all of my data today on a day when it's freezing temperatures, there's no humidity in the air, and then try to go take that data in August when it's super hot and super humid, 100 degrees, they are not going to line up. These are ballpark numbers, and if you want to go above and beyond, start collecting them in different seasons. But what you should know is that a lot of this can be replicated at home very quickly and very easily. All you got to do is go download or get online and find a ballistic solver app. Some of my favorites are Hornady and AB Quantum, the Applied Ballistics Quantum app. You're then going to go in and fill out basically the questionnaire when you're building a new profile. It's gonna ask you questions like, what caliber are you shooting and how heavy is that projectile? What is the height of your optic over the center of your barrel? You can even just take a ruler and get in the very close ballpark. Ideally, you'd have calipers or start to build some of those numbers on your own, looking at your mounts and so on and so forth. But again, you can do this with a ruler to get very close. Once you fill out that questionnaire, you're gonna find a spot where it's gonna be asking for your muzzle velocity. 2 options here. 1, you can look on the back of the box of the ammo or hop online and find what is the average velocity for this brand and weight ammo. Or you could actually go buy or borrow a chronograph and get the exact muzzle velocity. The truth is though, either way, you're gonna have to prove it out at distance. But with that muzzle velocity, you now have a chart that you should be able to find one way or another inside of the app. And once you have that chart, the goal should be to shoot your gun out at its max effective range. So on an SPR platform, let's say 700 yards, something like this, 700 yards. And I may find that my holds at 700 are off by just a little bit. I want to take my muzzle velocity and adjust that so that my holds are correct. And from there, you're gonna have true data that you can screenshot, You can put on different devices, or like I've done, you can actually draw lines and hand write out. At 100 yards, I'm zeroed, but at 150, I need to come up 0.2, and so on and so forth, however far out you want to go.
Now we need to talk about suppressors. At the time of this filming, there are about 5 million registered suppressors in the US, even more if you factor in all the oil filters and solvent traps and duct taped on plastic water bottles. So what happens when you put a suppressor on a rifle? Well, it does have a couple of effects. Unlike in video games where it makes your muzzle velocity go down, it can actually increase the muzzle velocity. It'll also heat up your gun faster, and in some cases can even cause the barrel to droop a little bit. All of you senior men watching this video know what I'm talking about.
So yeah, if you were to take your suppressor off, obviously the inverse would happen. Any one of these things could change the impact of where your round's actually gonna land at zero, as well as downrange, of course. So if you find yourself shooting with or without a can and changing that up fairly often for different reasons, probably a good idea to make note of what that zero shift would actually be. Hold on, YouTube can't let us do that. We can't do that on YouTube.
What if they just touch?
I don't think they mind if we touch. Max point blank range. All right, listen up real quick. What if I told you that there was a hold you could set on your elevation turret that would always give you headshots between 100 to 300 yards? Well, you can. For most ARs, that's at about 1 mil. You may be a little bit higher or a little bit lower depending on your muzzle velocity. That's typically when you are zeroed at 100 yards. But if you are working with a specific target size, this is what max point blank range theory is. If you are working with a specific target size, let's say 10 inches, I want to be working inside just that head box. I will accept some level of inaccuracy inside of that 100 to 300 yard range. That round may land a little bit low, that round may land a little bit high, but it's still going to be an impact because my ordnance, my projectile, is still either rising or falling depending on where it is out at distance. But I'm willing to accept that inaccuracy. So let me actually go from about 160 all the way out to 300 and show you real quick with this trigger cam. So let me start close at about 160. Impact a little bit high, but I'll take it. Impact close to center. Get that level. Impact center again, going out to 3. Impact starting to get low, but I'll still take that hit. Let's go a little bit further and see if I can get out to 330 with this. Yeah, even a little bit lower, but it's still catching the bottom of the target. So this is not something when you're working with like hostage rescue, trying to save your wife kind of thing. But man, inside of a 10-inch circle, trying to make hits from my 0 all the way out to 300, that's pretty sick. 1 mil on average. I'll take it. Now, everything that we've talked about so far has been with stationary targets. And if you haven't noticed, a lot of people do a lot of moving around. Average walking speed is 3 miles an hour. So at minimum, I like to put on the back of my card those mover speeds. So this would be directly left to right without any specific angles. Again, much like wind, we're at least giving a head start on how much you need to hold. And I'm gonna add some extra notes in here. Am I holding to the edge of the target or am I holding to center? And with that, you at least, again, have something to start to build off of and you're not working from blank 0. But where do you get this data? Well, 2 or 3 apps that I have found. Again, Hornady and AB Quantum, the Applied Ballistics Quantum app. Those are my 2 favorites that will actually give the data on a mover. With the Quantum app from Applied Ballistics, you can actually go in and select 3 point something miles per hour speed from left to right or from right to left. And at least you get your lead to center. Now, all that being said, you do still have to go out and prove it. And if you don't have a Kestrel, you can always find another good way to get some of this data, whether it's online or downloading an app onto your phone. All right, finally we have all the funny business to your gun. What do I mean by this? Well, the more you shoot your gun, the more you start to figure out that there's a few quirks to it. For example, after shooting this rifle in a PRS match that was super, super hot, I figured out that after about 8 to 10 rounds, the gun starts to heat up to the point where it is sending the rounds at a significantly higher speeds because the gun's hotter, and thus After a course of fire, if I'm continuing to shoot beyond 8 rounds, I need to take 2/10 of elevation out. Well, man, that information is phenomenal for anyone who's just picking up this rifle, or for myself a year later after I haven't shot it for a little bit. And then I got a suppressor for the gun, and I was aware of it, which meant that after shooting and testing a little bit, I figured out the can causes the rifle to heat up faster, meaning after 5 rounds, I need to actually make a 1 to 2/10 adjustment depending on how hot it is outside. Now this is me learning my equipment really, really well, but I don't want to forget it. And if anyone else has to pick up this gun, I want them to know it too. So that's one example of some funny business that you may have on your platform that you're going to want to put notes into your own card, just to remind yourself or anyone else, this is something to be on the lookout for. Drew had another example. Maybe you have a boatload of a specific kind of ammo for your 5.56 gun. It's not good ammo, but it's kind of popping primers in your rifle. Well, you don't want to shoot that ammo a whole ton, but man, if you had a note somewhere to remind yourself, be very cautious that this is what's happening. That way, if you do have a malfunction or if there's something weird going on, you can diagnose the problem a little bit faster. For others, it may be my gun runs through gas rings quite a bit quicker than others, or I need to keep my gun really, really clean in order to run better. This is the kind of funny business that I'm talking about that you know better than anyone else with your system because you get out and you train and you shoot a lot. All right, to sum it up, I have the name of my gun because I don't want to mix it up with some other data for a different rifle. It was zeroed with a Q can, that's the build. The ammo is PSA 77 grain Sierra Match King. I have my zero noted in the dope, which is 100 yards, no change. And then I have all of my dope below as well. So yards, hold, yards, hold, yards, hold. And then notes, if you are shooting a different kind of ammo, common 55 grain, adjustments to make. If you do not have a can on, you want to take it off for some reason, same ammo, there's an adjustment to make. Your max point blank range, and even 1 mil up, that works for a 10-inch target out to 319 mils. Wind considerations, my gun number is 3 miles an hour. Note, my top dot was zeroed at 100 yards, and there are extra batteries in the grip. Now, if you are dealing with movers, here's a little bit of data. For a 3 mile an hour mover, hold to center, and there's all of your holds out to 1,000 yards. But all of this is really just theory. If you can't write it down and have someone else read it and understand your chicken scratch, well, then the point of making sure that the tool being useful for everyone doesn't apply. So we're gonna put it to use. There is a stationary target at 294 on the lower right-hand side. It's a white rectangle. Impact, center. Impact, center. Impact, center. All right, above it to the right, there's another white triangle further out. That is at 330.
White triangle?
I'm sorry, white rectangle. I know my shapes. I was homeschooled. 330. Impact, center. There's 3 in a row, good job. Do you see M4 above it, the array of 3 targets? That range is 490. You're shooting for the middle circle. There's just a little bit of wind from left to right. Impact, center. High. Impact, center. High. Impact, center. All right, come back down to our mover. The closest one is at 300 yards even. He is moving 3 miles an hour. Just in front of it. Just in front of it. Just behind.
1.7, dude.
1.7 is at 100 yards. You should be at 2 mils at this distance.
Oh yeah, good call. Let's see how many times I can flip the safety on it.
Impact, center. Just behind it. Impact, center.
Really? Alright, I can see him a little better now.
Impact, low. low. Like,
How am I that low? I'm really low.
impact. Impact.
Okay, I was reading it wrong. I was pulling at 1.7 instead of 1.9,
Gotcha.
and I was breaking the shot at edge, not center. But you had it correct in your notes. I didn't do it correct in practice.
Well,
so.
now you got it.
Yep. Now, while Josh has made this video for you guys, what you need to know is he does this for all of the dudes in our crew. Like, seriously, he builds out this data. He can hand us a gun, any rifle, and we can get to work with it. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty great because it allows us to be a little bit lazy. With that being said, this is an awesome thing to practice out on the range with your crew of guys. Go and build out your cards, build out your data cards, and then go take a couple of your rifles out to the range with your buddies and swap out rifles, swap out data, and it really will spice up the range day, in my opinion, and will prove what you've been working on. Final thought, dad advice. If you're ever out the range and you want someone to know you're a dad, just do this, right? So that's what dads do with peanuts or any kind of trail mix, you know, just that's all it takes. Thanks to our Patreon subscribers. You guys get first access and ad-free videos every single week. And for all of you YouTubers watching us, we love you, and we'll catch you next week.
I'm not at 1 mil. I didn't dial.
He was at 1 mil, and I put him back down to 0, and he didn't catch it. Always check the status of your rifle before you start shooting or filming, Josh. Freaking idiot.